Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take a stack of dense sources, articles, and research and really pull out the crucial, actionable knowledge.
And today, we're looking at something fascinating, a journey, really.
Yeah, a really powerful and, well, sometimes controversial path a book takes.
From just a quick video clip on a phone.
Right, like on TikTok.
All the way to a huge Hollywood production. It's quite the pipe.
We're tracking that whole life cycle of virality, aren't we?
We are. You know, for years, publishing felt pretty predictable, stable, maybe.
Yeah, the rules were kind of set.
But this huge algorithm-driven success of reading, mostly because of BookTok, it's completely flipped the script.
It really has. Not just for authors and publishers anymore.
No, now it's fundamentally changing things for cinema, too.
Okay, let's unpack that transformation because it's a massive cultural shift we're seeing.
Definitely. And there are some amazing positives. You have to acknowledge that.
Absolutely. Reading is cool again. Sales are way up.
And new writers are breaking through almost instantly, which is incredible.
But our sources really zero in on this central tension, this huge commercial win, this whole engine built on virality.
It's, as one source put it, seeping off the page and onto the screen.
Yeah, that's a great phrase for it. So the big question we're tackling today is this system built on speed and trends, is it actually weakening the quality? The core story?
That's the heart of it. We're looking at a system where, going viral offers authors this immense success, life-changing sometimes.
Right, the dreams.
But that pressure, that very same pressure, seems to incentivize creating content that's designed to trend.
Content over story, maybe?
Sometimes, yeah. Prioritizing those quick emotional hits over, say, complex plot development that takes time.
And then Hollywood rushes in to grab it while it's hot.
And that's when the cracks show. If that foundation was rushed, putting it on screen.
Well, it exposes everything.
So our mission today is to really analyze that whole feedback loop.
Exactly. Look at the money involved, which is huge.
The positive side, like getting people reading it, but also the downsides. The potential hit to literary quality.
And what happens when the main goal shifts from telling a great story to just guaranteeing ticket sales?
And we have a perfect example right off the bat of this crossover.
Which one are you thinking of?
The Love Hypothesis, Ollie Hazelwood. It's like one of the foundational BookTok successes.
Oh, right. And that actually started out as fan fiction, didn't it?
Yeah, Star Wars fan fiction. Specifically, Rey and Kylo Ren.
No way. Really? I didn't know that specific detail.
Yeah, it was this niche thing that just exploded into this massive commercial hit because of BookTok.
And now, film adaptation.
Big time. Amazon MGM Studios, they've got Lily Reinhart, Tom Bateman attached, big names.
What really gets me is the momentum behind it, financially speaking. There isn't even an official release date yet, but the promotion machine, it's been going full tilt for months.
It feels less like launching a new film and more like just scheduling a guaranteed hit, you know? And that kind of aggressive promotion, it sends a huge signal to the whole industry.
What signal is that specifically?
That having that BookTok seal of approval, that built-in guaranteed audience, it's now seen as one of the most bankable assets out there.
So it's like pre-sold.
Yeah.
A safer bet from the get-go.
Absolutely. And studios are willing to shell out massive amounts to lock down these proven brands.
Okay. But to really get the consequences of these adaptations, we need to go back to the source.
We have to. We need to analyze the engine driving all this first.
Which brings us squarely to BookTok itself. Its incredible commercial power.
Yeah. So for anyone listening who maybe isn't chronically online, as they say.
Or maybe you've just managed to avoid TikTok so far, which good for you, maybe.
Maybe. But what is BookTok? Fundamentally, and how did it get so powerful?
Let's break it down.
Okay, so BookTok is basically this huge, sprawling community on TikTok. It's all about books, promoting them, sharing reactions, discussing them.
But it's way more than just a digital book club, right?
Oh, absolutely. It functions like this incredibly efficient, decentralized marketing.
How does that work in practice?
Users post these short videos, TikToks, right? They're usually really engaging, often super emotional.
Like clips of someone crying over a book ending.
Exactly. Or reacting to a specific plot twist, or just passionately recommending a book, often with trending music playing.
And these videos just take off.
They can get millions of views, and crucially, thousands of shares and saves. People save them as reading recommendations.
And those clicks, those saves, they translate into actual book sales, like real world.
Directly. And faster than any traditional marketing campaign could ever hope to achieve. We've got testimony.
From where?
There's a quote from a sales assistant at a big Waterstones bookstore in London, Piccadilly.
Okay, what do they say?
They said, and I'm quoting here, "I can't stress how much BookTok sells books. It's driven huge sales in young adult and romantic."
Wow. So that's direct, on-the-ground confirmation, a digital trend literally changing what's flying off physical shelves.
And the speed is the key thing. Traditional word of mouth. That takes months, maybe years to build.
Right, it's a slow burn.
BookTok can make a book a bestseller overnight. It's incredibly fast.
And the source mentioned the demographic driving.
Yeah, this is crucial. It's almost exclusively teen girls.
That's a specific, powerful group.
Hugely powerful, often underestimated market force. When they get behind something, they move the needle immediately. Not just in how many books sell, but how fast.
And you can actually track that speed right there in the bookstore.
You can. That same source said the rate of sales literally dictates which books are trending in the store.
So the stores react by creating those special displays.
Yep, dedicated BookTok recommendation tables right up front. The algorithm isn't just influencing online clicks, it's physically rearranging the layout of bookstores.
That's wild. It's like the algorithm has a physical footprint.
It kind of does. It's this democratization of taste, maybe, but one where speed and volume are king.
And the data backs this up.
Oh, yeah. The Publishers Association did a report. They found 55% of people they surveyed now turn to TikTok for book recommendations.
55%. More than half.
More than half are bypassing traditional critics, newspaper reviews, literary awards.
All the old gates.
And going straight to TikTok influencers and the community for what to read next. That's a massive shift in cultural authority.
So for an author, seeing this, BookTok must seem like the ultimate goal.
It's completely irresistible. Going viral on BookTok isn't just about selling some books anymore.
It's seen as the path.
It's cited as one of the absolute best ways to land a publishing deal, and it can, quote, completely change your life overnight.
The ultimate career fast track.
It really is. It's like finding a new kind of golden ticket in the publishing world.
So the incentive shifts, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's maybe less about spending 10 years crafting the perfect literary.
And more about
crafting a product that hits the right emotional notes for the algorithm, something that can get snapped up quickly and published fast.
But this whole system, this intense focus on commercial success, it's not all positive, right? There are critiques.
Definitely not all positive. While it's fantastic that more people are reading, the BookTok community itself faces some serious scrutiny.
Like what?
Well, one big one is about over-consumerism. People buying stacks of books just because they're trending.
The infamous TBR pile to be read that just keeps growing.
Exactly. Books bought as status symbols or trend items, maybe not even getting read.
And there are critiques about the content itself, too, aren't there?
Yes, and this is maybe more serious. There's a lot of discussion about how the platform often seems to glorify toxic or problematic relationships.
Particularly in those really popular genres.
Especially within the dominant romance and romantasy genres, yeah. The sheer speed and volume of sales don't always line up with stories promoting, say, healthy dynamics.
So what gets promoted instead?
Often it's the high drama stuff. Intense emotional conflicts, sometimes quite dark themes.
Why? Because that generates reaction.
Precise. Those moments are highly shareable. They provoke strong, instant emotional response, which is exactly what the algorithm rewards. Engagement is key.
Which brings us right to the potential cost of this whole speed-focused system.
Yeah, the structural cost. When the algorithm is essentially dictating the kind of content that succeeds, something has to give.
And according to the sources, what's giving way is the plot.
That's the provocative claim some observers are making. They're calling it, quite darkly, the death of the plots.
The death of the plots. Wow, that's a strong statement.
It is intentionally strong, but the argument behind it is pretty compelling.
What's the core argument?
It suggests that authors, whether they mean to or not, start aiming for that instant virality.
Okay.
And that leads them to focus on formulaic, recognizable, emotional beats, things they know will resonate quickly.
At the expense of what?
At the expense of developing, complex characters, nuanced themes, or genuinely original story structures. The books become predictable.
Because predictability trends.
Because predictability is the trend that sells reliably.
You definitely see that in the sheer amount of spicy romance and romantasy dominating the bestseller list right now.
Exactly. These genres aren't new, but the current wave seems heavily reliant on a very specific, almost generic romantic.
The formula itself becomes the product.
That's a good way to put it. Our sources detail these common elements, these tropes that appear again and again.
Like what? Give us the rundown.
Okay, almost always starts with two characters who despise the classic enemies to lovers.
Right, a fan favorite trope.
Then you get that moment,
the
highly anticipated shift where they catch feelings, big emotional payoff. Then, almost inevitably, comes the self-sabotage. self-sabotage. Usually a line like, I'm no good for you, you should stay away. Cue the angst.
Oh, yeah, that moment.
Which leads to the big argument, the brief separation, then the dramatic reunion.
Only for the cycle to start again.
Often, yes. The conflict and self-sabotage repeat to keep the tension high.
So the repetition is kind of the point, but also the problem.
It is. It's designed for that quick hit of emotional drama. Makes you want to keep reading right now.
Like an addiction.
A bit, yeah. But if you step back and look at the overall narrative, the story engine itself isn't really moving forward.
The characters aren't actually growing or changing?
They're just stuck repeating the same fight, engineered to deliver another emotional peak at the end of the chapter.
Okay, and this focus on immediate emotional highs, not complex plot, that ties into the other critique, the dumbing down idea.
It does. That's where you hear criticisms about simpler language being used, less intricate world building, shorter plot lines overall.
It feels very much like content tailored for, well, modern attention spans.
Especially the Gen Z audience, yeah, who are used to consuming content very quickly online.
So the writing style reflects that.
Often, yeah. Repetitive emotional descriptions, lots of cliffhangers, short, punchy sentences and paragraphs.
And the criticism is that this style can feel
lazy and uninspired is how some critics aim solely at going viral, not necessarily at literary depth.
So it leads to a kind of sameness.
A potential lack of real variety, yes. Even though readers say they want diverse fantasy worlds or complex.
The public, driven by what went viral last time,
often ends up delivering clones. It takes the proven formula, maybe spicy romance with a bit of fantasy, and just reproduces it.
Instead of investing in something truly different or structurally ambitious.
Right. It becomes mass production of a specific feeling rather than supporting deep original.
I think that comparison one source made was really spot on.
Which one?
Comparing it to fast fashion.
Ah, yes. That captures it perfectly, doesn't it?
The speed, the disposability, the way everything starts to look the same.
And that pressure on authors, sometimes self-imposed, to just keep pumping out books left, right, and center.
What's the result of that speed, according to the sources?
Exactly what you see in fast fashion. Either the quality takes a hit, rushed writing, poor editing, or the author is ultimately just releasing the same book over and over again, just with different characters in a different setting.
It's a content trend, rewarding volume over genuine originality, potentially leading to disposable literature.
That's here.
Okay, to really hammer home how this structural approach can sometimes fall apart, the source material gave a specific, pretty shocking example.
Right, of dialogue that feels generic but is trying so hard to be emotional.
We should probably look at this snippet closely because it really shows the flaw we're talking about.
You mean the one that goes, "You're so beautiful"?
Yeah, then when did you notice I asked? You don't want to know? Guess I do.
A year ago, I gasp. What, on your 17th birthday?
Right. That dialogue just by itself feels pretty empty, right? Like pure soap opera designed for a quick emotional reaction.
Completely devoid of real substance or context.
But then the source gives the context, and it's jarring.
It's incredibly jarring. It reveals the male character is a police officer who saved the female character from a crack house when she was only 7.
Wait, what? That's the backstory for that dialogue.
That's the backstory. And the contrast is just, it's a structural disaster.
You have this incredibly complex, potentially traumatic history abuse, rescue, a huge age gap, power dynamics.
All these really heavy, difficult themes.
And yet the actual interaction, the dialogue happening now is just the most generic, breathless teenage romance stuff.
It shows the author is trying to use these really dramatic tropes, the rescuer, the survivor, forbidden love aspect for shock value.
But without doing the actual literary work required.
Exactly. Without integrating that complexity into how the characters actually speak or behave now. The dialogue doesn't match supposed depth of the scene at all.
It's like taking an intellectual shortcut. Just mash together the most dramatic tropes you can find.
Trauma survivor, cops.
But then fail to write the nuanced interaction that situation would actually...
It perfectly highlights how these intense emotionals can be just thrown together without the literary structure needed to make them believable.
Writing for the quick, shareable moment? Maybe. Not for the integrity of the novel itself.
It seems to be the critique, yeah.
And just to round off the production side of things, this speed we're talking about.
It's sometimes boosted by technology, too.
How so?
Our sources mention some authors are using AI, artificial intelligence.
To help write the books.
Yeah, maybe to get over writer's block or to generate text quickly, fill things out.
Okay. AI can be a tool, obviously.
Of course. But when you combine that with the intense pressure to churn out formulaic content really fast,
I could just add to the generic feel.
It could potentially further contribute to the speed and maybe the repetitive nature of what gets published.
Okay. So we have this product, fast, often repetitive, engineered for maximum viral reach.
Yep.
And as we said earlier, where there's a guaranteed audience, a pre-vetted market.
There's money, big money.
And that kind of money It attracts Hollywood.
Yeah.
Like moths to a flame.
That's exactly where the whole system kicks into overdrive. Exponential.
So the studios see this BookTok phenomenon.
And they see dollar signs, facing tighter budgets, fierce streaming competition. They realize these adaptations are a way to reduce risk massively.
They are, as the source said, quite simply, a safer bet.
Yeah, but let's be clear what safer bet means in Hollywood terms.
Okay. It's not just about making a profit.
It's often more about avoiding a catastrophic loss. Launching a totally original film is a huge gamble.
Millions of dollars on something completely unknown.
Whereas a BookTok sensation, it comes with a built-in audience of millions. Readers who are already invested already know the characters, the story.
So the studio doesn't have to spend as much convincing people to see it.
Critically, they save a fortune on marketing and advertising, P&A, prints, and advertising.
Right, because the awareness is already there.
The BookTok readers have essentially done the early marketing work for them. So studios see adapting these viral books as something that will often lead to a profit.
Much more reliably than rolling the dice on an unknown script from an unknown writer.
Exactly. It's an economic calculation.
And this creates a real sense of urgency, doesn't it?
Astonishing urgency. The sources highlight how quickly studios are snapping up the rights.
Sometimes even before the book is actually published.
Yeah, sometimes based purely on the online hype, the TikTok buzz. They want to catch that wave right at its...
They're basically trying to raise the algorithm.
They are. But this rush, this is where the risk really comes into focus.
How so?
As our source material points out, if the original story doesn't start off with a good foundation...
Meaning, if the plot is fundamentally weak, held together by those emotional moments, rather than solid structure.
Exact. Then rushing it onto the screen.
Yeah.
That's when cracks show. Immediately.
Because film is different.
Yeah.
It demands more than just internal feeling.
The visual medium is brutal. It has no patience for a plot that mostly exists in a character's head or relies on repeating the same argument over and over. It needs external action, visible progression.
And weak plots just have nowhere to hide on.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, that sets us up perfectly for the case studies. These give us really concrete examples of this whole high-speed, high-stakes process.
And the intense public reactions that often follow.
We absolutely have to start with one of the most talked about, maybe most controversial examples, Alex Aster and Lightlark.
Oh, yes. The Lightlark saga is like a perfect miniature of the whole BookTok machine, followed by a huge community back.
So walk us through it. Alex Aster, back in 2022.
She achieved this incredible success almost entirely through her pitch for a YA novel, Lightlark, on TikTok.
She pitched it before it was fully written or sold.
She sold the idea, the concept, the hype directly to readers on the platform. And it worked spectacularly.
What happened next?
That viral pitch landed her a massive 6-figure publishing deal with Amulet within a week.
Wow. 1 week from viral video to major deal. That's the change your life overnight thing in action.
Instantaneous. And the speed just kept accelerating.
How?
Just a few months later, in July 2022, this is before the book actually came out in August, she announced a huge movie deal.
A movie deal before the book was even on shelves.
With Universal Studios. She commented, apparently, that the deal involved more zeros than I've ever seen in my life.
The whole industry must have been watching this unfold. Unprecedented speed.
Totally. But this is where the story, the friction started.
Within the BookTok.
Yeah. People started questioning the narrative she'd presented. She had talked about her struggles, losing agents, working hard.
Painting that relatable picture of the determined underdog finally breaking through.
Exactly. And authenticity, the underdog story, it's really valued in the BookTok community ethos.
So what happened? People started digging.
They did, and they found out her family was actually very rich, extremely wealthy. Her twin sister, reportedly, is one of the richest women in the U.S.
Ooh. So the struggling writer narrative suddenly looked less authentic.
It looked manufactured to some people. The story shifted dramatically.
From inspiration to controversy.
Full-blown controversy. Accusations started flying. People called her an industry plant.
Meaning?
Suggesting her success wasn't purely organic, that it might have been helped along by her family's wealth and connections, which undermines the whole idea of BookTok being this democratic level playing field.
She was accused of falsely advertising herself and her privilege.
Exactly. And this anger wasn't just online chatter. It had real consequences.
What happened on release day?
On August 23rd, the day the book came out, all that pent-up anger resulted in a coordinated review bombing campaign.
People deliberately leaving negative reviews.
Yep. They drove the book's rating on Goodreads down to something like 2.5 stars almost immediately. It was a very public, collective pushback from an audience that felt misled.
And the criticism wasn't just about her background.
Right.
It hit the book itself.
It did. People specifically pointed out that the cool tropes and exciting scenes she'd advertised in her viral TikTok
They weren't actually in the book, or were different.
They were either missing or readers felt they were highly misleading. She'd pitched it as a mix of The Hunger Games and A Court of Thorns and Roses. Huge, specific comparison.
And readers didn't see it.
Many struggled to find those elements or that level of quality in the actual book. It felt like a classic case of the viral marketing promising something the product couldn't deliver, maybe because the foundation was...
Okay, but here's the kicker, right? The really crucial part for this discussion.
Yes. Despite the terrible reviews, the public backlash, the controversy...
Universal is still making the movie.
Universal proceeded with The Lightlark. It's apparently expected next year. And not only that, Aster also got another movie deal for her other book, Somewhere in...
So what does that tell us about Hollywood's perspective?
It confirms they weren't buying the book's literary merit or its current critical standing. They were buying
the proof that her name and this title could generate millions of clicks and views.
Exactly. They bought the brand awareness, the guaranteed audience space. Even an angry one is still an engaged one, perhaps. That built-in recognition was deemed valuable enough to push ahead with production, regardless of the book's actual reception.
That's a really telling point. Okay, we absolutely have to move on to the biggest name in this face.
The undisputed queen of book talk.
Colleen Hoover. She just exploded in 2022, didn't she?
Completely took over. Multiple books hitting the top of the bestseller lists all the time. It was unprecedented.
And her adaptation pipeline is just enormous, but also controversial.
Very controversial, especially the adaptation of It Ends With Us.
Starring Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni, right? What happened there?
Well, beyond just the usual adaptation debates, it got messy behind reports of a massive legal battle.
Between who?
Apparently the stars were suing each other, which is not typical, even for Hollywood.
No kidding. That suggests some serious internal friction, even before the movie's release. Maybe linked to the pressure of adapting such a huge, sensitive book so quickly.
Could be. But the problems weren't just on set. The marketing for Ends With Us also drew a lot of criticism.
Why? What was the issue?
It highlighted a major failure, it seems, by the studio or the marketing team to really understand the source material they were selling.
They were just focused on the romance aspect. The huge sales numbers.
Apparently. Our source points out the promotion rarely mentioned the core theme of domestic...
Which is central to that book's plot and message.
Absolutely central. And they often failed to include necessary trigger warnings for audience.
That's a big failure. Not just commercially, but ethically, maybe.
A profound failure to translate the gravity of the book in responsible marketing for a mass audience.
And the speed of her other projects just keeps underlining this rapid adaptation trend.
It's staggering. Reminders of Him, produced by Universal. The source noted its trailer dropped just 21 hours before the article was written.
And it already had
8.9 million views.
Right.
Just like that. That's pure viral momentum the studios are banking on. They know people will click.
Then there's Verity, the darker one, a thriller.
Right. Amazon MGM Studios grabbed the rights for that. And look at the cast they attached.
Who was?
Anne Hathaway, Dakota Johnson, Josh Hartnett. Major star power showing the level of investment.
And the release date.
Originally May 2026, pushed back slightly to October 2nd, 2026. A small delay, but it hints at the complex logistics, even when they're trying to move fast on these big projects.
But maybe the most crucial data point here regarding that death of plots idea
comes from the books that's currently out as a movie, Regretting You.
Paramount Pictures released it, and the reviews are
pretty from critics and viewers.
Any specific criticisms mentioned?
Yes. One review quoted in our source was particularly blunt, called the movie simply plotless.
Plus. Ouch.
And added, this shit had no plot.
Okay, well that directly supports the argument, doesn't it?
It precisely reinforces that core criticism. When a book perhaps relies heavily on internal feeling or repetitive drama, and you translate it,
the lack of a strong driving plot becomes painfully obvious.
Expose.
Exactly.
And these huge deals for BookTok authors, they're becoming standard practice now.
Seems like it. We should also mention Anna Hong. She writes the Twisted Love romance series.
What about?
She landed a 7-figure option deal with Netflix for a new show based on her work.
7-figure?
Yeah. It just confirms this is the new playbook for content acquisition across all the major streaming platforms. They want these built-in audiences.
Okay, so all these examples, Lightlark, Hoover, Anna Hong, they all point towards this big challenge.
Fundamental artistic challenge, really. The translation problem.
Moving a story from one medium to another.
Exact. Shifting from the private, internal experience of reading a novel to the public, external visual medium of film or TV. It creates huge systemic problems.
Especially if the original book may be structurally weak to begin with. Or very repetitive. That's when it becomes almost impossible to translate well.
Because film and TV just work differently. They have different rules.
Completely different. A novel can spend pages and pages inside a character's head, exploring their feelings, their thoughts. That's often what readers love.
But you can't just film someone thinking for 2 hours.
Right. You have to externalize everything, simplify it, and inevitably you lose important details just to fit it into a 90-minute or 2-hour movie.
Which is bound to disappoint the fans who loved all that nuance in the book.
Often, yeah. Because maybe what they loved was that internal monologue, that deep dive into emotion.
And on screen, that becomes...
It has to become external action dialogue. And if the plot surrounding those emotional beats is thin...
You're just left with maybe repetitive scenes, like the arguments we talked about.
Exactly. Repetitive arguments or maybe repetitive physical intimacy scenes in the romance genre. Those things alone can't carry a whole movie if the underlying story isn't strong.
And the source material suggests the studios. They know this, but maybe don't care prioritize.
Their motivation is often primarily commercial, the source argues. They buy the rights for the name right for that built-in audience.
They're buying the marketing potential, not necessarily the literary quality.
Which means they might be less invested in staying faithful to the author's original vision.
Unless the author specifically negotiated for creative control.
Right. And that's often compounded by the contract. Unless there's a specific clause giving the author a say, the studio usually has the freedom to adapt the story however they fit.
Which can lead to changes that really alienate the original fan.
Definitely. So the result pretty often is viewer disappointment.
For a couple of reasons, right?
Yeah. First, just the basic fact that the movie never quite matches how you pictured it in your head when reading. That's almost unavoidable.
Your personal imagination is always different.
But more critically, as we've been saying, the visual medium is like this harsh spotlight. It exposes how lacking the plot actually is.
If the book only worked because of those repetitive emotional highs or internal thoughts.
Once you strip that away and demand that the dialogue and the action carry the story forward, the weaknesses glare out.
In this whole cycle, repetitive books generating repetitive movies, it's becoming a pattern.
It seems to be. You mentioned the After series earlier. That really kicked off this wave of adaptations from Wattpad or fanfic-style origins.
Yeah, I remember reading about someone getting bored by the third book, feeling it was just the same toxic relationship drama looping over and over.
And they predicted the movies would be the same.
Which they apparently were,
Yeah.
like After or Beautiful Disaster, or even The Idea of You to some extent. These movies often follow that pattern.
What pattern is that?
A decent first film, maybe, that captures the initial hook, followed by sequels that feel really repetitive.
Because the source material itself was repetitive and formulaic.
Exactly. And this lack of depth, this rushed feeling, it shows up in the look of the films too, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's not just weak plots. The aesthetic critique is consistent. They often look cheap or hurried.
How so? What do the sources say?
They describe the cinematography sometimes feeling like a Hallmark movie, kind of flat lighting, flat colors.
Lacking visual flair or creativity.
Yeah, a noticeable lack of investment in interesting set design or unique lighting or giving the film a real visual personality.
It feels generic visually as well as narratively.
That's the criticism.
Right.
And sometimes technical aspects suffer too, like poor CGI. The dialogue often gets stripped down, losing any interesting quirks the author might have written.
Even if the author spent ages crafting those characters' voices.
It all feeds into this feeling of a rushed product. Compare it to traditional filmmaking.
Which can take years, right? Writing, casting, finding locations, editing. It's painstaking.
Exactly. And when these BookTok adaptations are churned out much faster,
you get that fast fashion style of film production. Looks okay on the surface, maybe, but lacks quality and originality underneath.
And this creates a really worrying potential shift for the whole industry. Well, if Hollywood learns it can make decent money, or at least avoid big losses, by quickly producing films based on the pre-tested viral books,
it makes them less likely to take a risk on something original.
It actively disincentivizes that slow, expensive, risky process of developing truly original scripts from unknown writers. Why gamble when you have a perceived safer bet, right?
It becomes an economic decision to prioritize speed and known metrics over creative exploration.
That's the potential danger.
Okay. But we need to be balanced.
Yeah.
It's not all bad adaptations, right? The sources mention some successes.
Yes, absolutely. We have to acknowledge the exceptions. Adaptations like The Summer I Turned Pretty or the BBC Hulu adaptation of Sally Rooney's Normal People.
Both very popular and generally well regarded critically.
They show that it can be done well.
Yeah.
If you have good source material to start with, and crucially, the right scriptwriters and a production team that respects the original work.
It can translate beautifully.
It can. And it's probably not a coincidence that both of those examples you mentioned were adapted as TV series, not movies.
Ah, that's a key difference. Why does that matter so much?
The series format time, more room to explore the characters, include those important details from the book, let the story breathe.
You don't have to chop everything down to fit a tight 90-minute run.
Exactly. It mitigates that massive compression. So, good plot, plus good writers, plus enough time.
But the failures still seem numerous, and they really highlight the risks of chasing virality over story.
And sometimes even good source material isn't enough if the adaptation itself is flawed. Look at the recent Uglies.
Scott Westerfield, right? Those are pretty popular YA.
Yeah, a well-known dystopian, critiquing beauty standards, conformity, quite a strong premise.
Solid books, solid following. But the Netflix movie adaptation,
released in 2024, and it got heavily criticized, widely mocked online.
Even though the books were considered good.
Yeah, it just goes to show that even existing popularity and decent source material are no guarantee. If the execution is rushed, or the adaptation fundamentally misunderstands the book's theme, it can still fail spectacularly.
Okay, so let's try to synthesize all that. We've got the publishing timeline speeding up dramatically.
Content potentially getting simpler, more formulaic.
Hollywood pouring huge amounts of money into these properties based on metrics.
And often a public backlash against the quality or the look of the final film adaptation.
So pulling it all together, what does this really mean for the future, for both books and movies?
Well, it confirms something we knew but intensified. Hollywood adapting books isn't new.
No, that's been happening forever.
But the kind of book getting adapted and the reasons for adapting it, that seems to have radically changed because of BookTok's influence.
It feels undeniably like quantity and speed are increasingly being prioritized over quality and originality.
That's the trend the sources point, leading to potentially less creative diversity in what gets made, more formulaic projects getting green.
Because studios like Netflix are willing to write those huge 7-figure checks for a popular BookTok series.
Even one with controversy or mixed reviews.
Instead of taking a chance on an original pitch from a filmmaker who's maybe spent years developing it?
It redirects the resources. The pipeline for what gets funded and produced is fundamentally shifting towards these known viral quantities.
Which ultimately brings the focus back to us, doesn't it? To the audience.
It absolutely does. This entire high-speed, high-volume, it runs on our clicks, our purchases, our views.
So if we, the audience, keep buying the repetitive books just because they're trend.
And then we watch the movie adaptations, even if we end up complaining about them online afterward.
You're essentially telling the system, yes, more of this, please.
We're incentivizing it to keep producing exactly the same kind of content. Our collective behavior fuels the cycle. Our clicks are, in effect, votes for what gets made next.
That's a powerful thought. The source material ended by asking a question.
Yeah, asking the audience what they think is the best book-to-movie adaptation ever. Fun question, I think.
It does. A great exercise in taste and memory. But maybe we can build on that for our final provocative thought, because it touches on our own role in this.
Okay. Where are you going with that?
Well, if we know now how this viral machine often works, how it can generate content designed for quick consumption, easy adaptation.
Content that might prioritize a profitable formula over genuine originality.
Does that change how we should think about our own choice? Does what we choose to read and what we choose to watch now carry a kind of weight beyond just entertainment?
Are you saying like a moral weight?
Maybe not moral exactly, but a creative one. Are we, the audience, indirectly shaping the future of cinema, determining its creative diversity or lack thereof by what we choose to engage with now?
That's a fascinating question. Are we actively rewarding originality with our attention, or are we just constantly confirming to Hollywood that the safe bet, the familiar, the repetitive clone, is always the smartest financial?
It's definitely something to think about. Is the next time you see that super hyped book on TikTok, or when that big adaptation lands on Netflix or in theaters.
That seemingly small choice you make to read it, to watch it, or to seek out something different, it's part of a much larger feedback.
A loop that influences the kinds of stories being funded and created years down the line.
Absolutely. So think about that loop. Think about what kinds of stories you genuinely want as filmmakers telling and readers reading.
We really hope this deep dive has given you the context you need to understand this huge shift happening right from the bookshelf to the big screen.
Thanks for diving in with us.